Executive Vice President of Digital Products and Services at the New York Times. Thanks, Denise. Michael Donnelly, Senior Vice President, Group Head of Global Digital Marketing at MasterCard. Hi, Mike. And Dan Rosamondo, Senior Vice President of Global Marketing Partnerships at the NBA. Hi. So this is kind of where we dig into the synapses of your peers, right? So people like you, glad to have you on the stage and welcome. I'm just going to start by asking you to highlight what you're responsible for, right? Because chief digital officers and senior digital marketers have different responsibilities. So let's just sort of find out what each of you are responsible for in your world. Start with you, Denise.
So good morning, everybody. It's great to be here. In my portfolio, I actually oversee many elements of the digital operation. I actually have the marketing team reporting to me, the consumer sales business reporting to me. I have the digital technology team reporting to me, the product organization reporting to me, and I'm responsible for the P&L. So in a funny way, I'm actually going to rip off what Troy said this morning. I feel like a unicorn.
Thanks,
wow.
Denise.
I don't have quite that much responsibility. I find myself very often at MasterCard saying that I'm in the business of trying to harness and facilitate momentum. And what I mean by that is that right now at MasterCard, public for a little over 6 years, only 6 years, we got tremendous momentum. And the way I'm defining momentum is it's all going in the right direction, but if we can harness it and give it a little more focus, it can be an awful lot more efficient, and we can be an awful lot more effective. So that's what I do. My responsibility is in marketing. However, what I'm trying to do is bring in some expertise across all digital marketing tactics to really affect product development, marketing, communications, HR, and every other group. But I'm primarily focused on marketing.
Thanks, Mike.
Hey, morning, everybody. I'm going to be a little, I guess, more crude. I am in the business of monetizing our content. I try to make money for the league. I work with all of our media licensees across the globe to monetize the content that they've paid us for, and then I work, again, with our teams across the globe by bringing in new partners to the NBA to help us both distribute our content and also to market the NBA on our behalf.
Thanks, guys. So the first question, I'm going to ask some questions. I've got some questions prepared, but what I'd actually ask the audience to do, if you've got questions for these panelists, think about them, write it down as we talk. I'm going to save some time at the end to go around the room and see what sort of questions you have, so I'll give you some time to think about that. When we do research on chief digital officer and digital business, a lot of the times, the age-old question of this relationship between marketing and technology comes up. So I'm just going to dig right into the heart of this at the start and ask you, tell us about the relationship you have between marketing, technology, digital, IT, and what is the ideal relationship from your perspective? What do you have it, and if not, what is it? Let's start with you, Denise.
Sure. So I guess it's fair to say that marketing's from Venus and technology's from Mars. I mean, that's really what this conversation's all about. I think in my role, what I've observed is my job as technically the chief digital officer, although it's not quite my title, is really to get those two disciplines working effectively together. I often compare myself to the leader of an orchestra or the coach of, a really great sports team. You've got different positions, people have different skills, and the magic happens when you bring them together. So I'm actually finding that a lot of my time is being spent on helping each one of these disciplines actually understand the other side and just getting them working together really, really effectively. And we absolutely believe that we can create competitive advantage by getting marketing and technology to work more effectively together. And so we're spending an awful lot of time doing that. So I'm not going to sit here and pretend to say that I've figured out the ideal relationship. I think that would just be fictitious. I don't think anybody has. I think that's actually why we're all sitting here, because there just seems to be so many different ways to handle this, and this is sort of relatively new in our world. But again, for me, it's really just about creating a great team and making sure that we get that team to play together as effectively as possible.
Great. Mike?
I'd just say that from Chan's first comments earlier this morning and what Denise just said, I feel like I'm amongst friends.
Yeah.
We're all in this together, so I'm not the only one trying to figure this out. At MasterCard, I've been there about 1.5 years, and it's significantly different for me coming from a CPG company where we actually have a whole lot of technology people. We're only about 8,000 people in the company, and our core competency is really about processing payments. So dealing with IT is a whole new realm for me because IT is tremendous. They do run the processing of the company. So that said, we too don't have it figured out yet, But we significantly know that, if that makes sense, we know that we need to be attached at the hip. And that is the relationship we put together right now. And I'm real proud to say that by being attached at the hip and leveraging what we think is a uniquely differentiated ecosystem in our company, and what differentiated means for us versus our competition is a lot of the wholly owned subsidiaries we have. We've got some properties that our competition doesn't have and some competencies that they don't have. And by being attached at the hip, we think that it's a little bit of a David and Goliath story and that we can conquer in the end.
Don, how about you?
Yeah, I think we have a little bit of a challenging or different position, frankly. So we have these 450 guys who are probably the greatest athletes in the world who are our product, but they're also built-in endorsers of our product. And they're also our partners in the business. So we try to figure out ways from a technological standpoint to bring them to the forefront, to let people interact with them, let people see the feats of really incredible athleticism they do on a nightly basis, and we have to bring that to people in different ways every day. And so we let technology, I think technology has the ability to change consumer habits, but content is what's going to make that habit stick or make it into a habit. So I think technology can change the way people do things, but we have the ability to make you want to go back and continue to do that. So we have a little bit of a differentiating. I think technology is always looking for, we this year launched something where people can, it's called Stats View. People just see all this rich data on where our players move around the court, how long they run, and that's going to lead into our RFID chips to our players' uniforms very quickly. So technology enables people to see our game in a different way, and that's really the best marketing that we can possibly do. So that they're inextricably linked for us, and it's just a way of how do we, frankly, keep up. Not catch up, but keep up.
And a lot of organizations structure differently. I'm interested, what percentage of your team would you characterize as sort of creative versus technology? Do you have technology people embedded in your team that you're responsible for? Mike, should we start with you?
For me, it's roughly 50-50. I would say it's the case. I actually have people distributed out with our technology group as well because we're not situated in the same place, which makes the relationship a whole lot much harder with geographic distance.
So you've embedded some of your team in the technology group?
I have, and I think it's really worked out well.
Does it work the other way too?
It's about a year done now. No, but it's ironic. That's exactly what we're doing next. In fact, within the next several weeks, I'll have some other people sitting with us as well. So it is a harmonious effort to get there.
Right.
Again, not there, not all figured out, but that alone has really, really helped.
Okay. Don, do you?
I think everybody has to have that combination of technological expertise and creativity. And the ideal employees, the ideal leaders have both. So we have an entire office out in Secaucus, New Jersey, that's basically about technology and game presentation, NBA entertainment it's called.
Right.
So it's an entire building. So I think I would say but we're also a strategy where everything has got to be digitally focused. Who our fan is, this really young, multicultural fan who's on the cutting edge of technology. We have to be. Everything we have to do is be rooted in digital, and now it's even mobile first. Even more than digital, we have to be mobile first because that's what people are consuming our content.
Right. Okay. Denise, you have a huge portfolio, so I'm guessing you've got technology people inside your team, right?
Yes, I do. We have a rather large digital technology team. I guess what I would say here is that we're doing the best job we can at this point to try to have each of these disciplines understand the other one. I think we think it's important to have specific expertise in marketing and specific expertise in technology, but that each side really needs to understand the other side. And so we're working very, very hard to create exchange programs. We've done things, for example, like Day in the Life. We actually had our CIO and our CMO, which we actually call a chief customer officer, don't get me started on why, but we do, actually swap jobs for a day so that they could actually understand what it's like to live in the other one's shoes. And it gave them an incredible appreciation for what each other is dealing with, and I think it gave them much stronger empathy for what each side of the organization has to deal with. So again, ideally, would I love everybody to have both the marketing and the technology discipline all wrapped up into one? Sure, but I think it's kind of impossible, especially where we are at this point, to find that. So we're doing the best job we can to educate and share and help people understand, embed specific people. We have a technology person actually embedded in the marketing team so that that person can speak marketing's language, can understand marketing's needs, can bring that back to technology and navigate the technology organization so that the marketing team can actually get its needs met in the best possible way. So that's how we're handling
That's really cool. So let me just sort of flip this around and pivot. And a lot of what you're doing is to create great experiences, right? And you need the technology, you need the creative, but it's all about trying to create those great customer experiences. And look at the research we've done over the last 12 months on Chief Digital Officer in particular. One of the things that I was struck by is that there's very rarely, if ever, a Chief Customer Officer and a Chief Digital Officer in the same organization. And interestingly, Denise, you say you're Chief Marketing Officer.
This is new, though, just as of April. So
right.
This is, I'm not going to sit here and pretend like we've had this going for years. This is just something we got started doing in April.
So, I mean, this is kind of an open-ended question, but really, why do you think that might be, that there's not a Chief Digital Officer and a Chief Customer Officer in the same organization? Are they the same kind of roles? Is there so much overlap? What's the difference here?
So I guess I would say in our business, it's a little different because we have the dual revenue streams of both advertising revenue and consumer revenue, and so there's two sets of customers. So our Chief Consumer Officer worries about our subscriber, the user of our website. We have a separate advertising organization that's run independently of my organization, that Meredith Levian, who reports to our CEO, she's responsible for the advertising customer. So I think one of the reasons why in our organization it makes sense is you need somebody looking over the whole, but you also need somebody looking over the individual pieces. And I think my role is really about ensuring that the product works for both sets of customers. Our Chief Customer Officer is really only worried about our subscriber. And ultimately that matters to our advertising partners, but you need to worry about both, and you need to worry about the whole thing. So I think for us in particular, being a media company, it makes sense to have somebody in that role. I don't know if it necessarily makes sense for every other organization.
Mike, what have you seen?
We don't officially have either of those titles in our company. And I think that, as Denise just said, those titles mean something different to everybody, right, and mean something different based upon what, the basis of your business. So I'd say we have people playing those roles. I think the management and myself are actually satisfied with the way that's actually being played. So honestly don't see a need for those roles right now.
Do you have customer experience as a strategy? Developing an outstanding customer experience, is that part of your business strategy?
At the beginning of the question, we don't.
Is customer experience part of your business strategy?
Yes. Oh yes, and it sits in a lot of people's camps because we make products, we make different payment products of the future, many of which hopefully you'll see in the near future, as well as obviously we make experiences and marketing experiences. In fact, I got to say I love the fact that Google spent a lot of time on the GOAT videos because around MasterCard people think I'm a little bit insane because I use the GOAT videos as my example of really stretching the boundaries of our brand. People don't expect that from MasterCard, and the first day I saw that, and I've got 4 kids, I go lots of long drives, so the GOAT videos play an awful lot in my back seat, and there's lots of laughing for hours at a time, and I decided I wanted to drape the GOATs with a MasterCard jacket. And again, MasterCard people think I'm a little bit insane. My point is I want to really stretch the boundaries of our brand to take advantage of that reach, that levity, that fun, all the great things that she was speaking about.
Don, customer experience?
Yeah, we have David Stern, who thinks he's Chief Marketing Officer, Chief Customer Officer, Chief Digital Officer, Chief Revenue Officer, Chief Intelligence Officer. It falls in everything. So but we don't have either. But that said, we have different customers. We have different constituents. We have the fan, but then we have a group that our team is their customer. So we have then a group of who are advertisers and partners are their customer. We have a group that our players are their customer. So in this sort of wacky matrix that we have at the MBA, everybody has to be both. And it's the leaders of those organizations, it's me and some other folks who then have to try to figure out and really work on all those answers across the different functional areas. So, which is a little bit of a different scenario because we have so many constituents.
Okay, cool. So a lot of what you're trying to do in your roles obviously influence us as consumers, right? But also create this digital transformation inside your own organizations. I mean, you're trying to get people to really understand what the potential of digital is to transform the organization. Now that we know you're gonna hit against barriers, as I'm sure everybody in the room does, right? You hit against barriers. So, how do you get around those sort of functional silos, those organizational barriers that get in your way? What sort of, are there any tips you can offer the audience in terms of things that you've seen that work, even if it's, seems really simple? Don?
Yeah, patience is one. Yeah, I mean, we have this organization that's, we've been in the content distribution business for a long time, and it used to be to get a game distributed on Italian television, whether it was Rai or now it's Sky Italia, we used to have to send the tape overnight, or however that worked 30 years ago, to a person who'd have to then walk it down the street to the broadcaster, and it'd be on like in a week tape delay. Now we put it up to the satellite, it comes back down, it gets there at the same time, and it's just a transformation. But we're also trying to figure out ways that we take feeds from those games, that some are dirty, some are clean. What's the value equation of whether we bring a clean feed into Italy or a dirty feed? It's just a game that's all the graphics. And my organization obviously knows there's more value to those clean feeds, but we have to prove that. And the folks in broadcast operations have been doing things for so long, and the same way we have to kind of push them. And I would like it's a function of both commerce, what we can do from a financial standpoint to justify it, and then also just from, is there scale to it across other areas of the business. And I think that's an important thing, is that you can push through transformation if you can then apply it across a wide swath of the organization. And that's one of the things that we strive to do. If we want to transform something, we then have to look for don't take a myopic view of the one aspect that we're trying to transform. Let's see how it can apply to the entire organization. I think that's important.
Do you begin in one part of the organization?
Yeah, we try to. Yeah. I try to make friends really quickly.
Right.
That's part of it. It's like we always joke around that the internal value proposition is much harder sometimes than the external value proposition. You can walk into people's offices and people get the NDA. But if you want to then do something with that understanding internally, that's when the harder sell takes place. So you try to win friends and influence people on a daily basis.
Right. Mike?
That's great advice. I don't think what I got to say is any more prolific, but it is really about making sure that whatever it is you're trying to move, this mountain becomes, if not their idea, then certainly a mutual idea. And I say that again because our core competency is about processing payments, and that's what we do. So there's been a long-term bias about building versus partnering or buying. And we're shifting that, given an awful lot of the nimbleness we need in a marketing and communications world. So making it their idea and alleviating the pressures on their systems has been successful for me. Again, partnering and buying versus always building.
Okay, so you're shifting from always building to partnering and buying. Cool, okay. Sure. Denise?
I mean, your question's about change and transformation, right? At this stage, I think anybody sitting here in the New York Times, any of the other brands that are represented are fully digital. So I don't think it's necessarily about, convincing people that, we need to start thinking about digital. We're there. But anytime you try to transform an organization, it's challenging. It's challenging because there's fear. People realize, oh my goodness, I've got to do something that I'm not familiar with or I don't understand. So I guess what I've learned over the last couple of years, having been involved in a number of transformation projects at the New York Times, is you really have to listen really, really carefully. And you have to listen to what people are saying, but more importantly, you have to listen to what they're not saying. And you really have to get underneath what it is that they're, that's motivating them. And I think at the end of the day, that's what unlocks the power of the change. I mean, I'll just give a really quick anecdote for when we transformed our business model, which was fairly recently, and we shifted our digital business from one that relied only on advertising to one that now relies both on advertising and digital subscriptions. Really controversial. We spent, some would say too long, I'd probably be the first one to say it, but we spent over a year internally working through the issues in the organization, really listening to both sides of the decision. And I truly believe it when I say that the reason for our success is because we did that. Because in that process, we really understood what the issues were that would prevent us from succeeding. And we were really able to address them and build a better product and build a better service for our customers. So I think that listening is probably the single most important thing.
Excellent. Any questions in the audience? Anybody, put your hand up if you have a question. We've got a mic that will go around. No questions? Okay, I'm going to ask another one then. So, a lot of people in this room, I'm sure, are involving customers in trying to design digital experiences, right? So can you just share how you involve your customers in designing your digital experiences, Denise?
Yeah, so I love this question because I will say candidly, up until this point, I don't think we did it enough. And so one of the initiatives that's in my portfolio right now is to build a suite of new products and services that are so good that people will actually be willing to pay for them in the digital space. So as I said, we had a large degree of success with our digital pay business. But essentially what we did was we took the product that we've been producing for hundreds of years and started charging for it online. And that's great. I'd argue probably a lot easier than what we're trying to do now. And typically when you work in a media organization, and I know I have several friends in the room who can attest to this, that there's this church-state side of the equation, and there is generally a sense on the editorial side that they know what is right for the consumer. And I do think that is right. But sometimes that tends to port itself over to the product development side, and we don't tend to involve the customer as much. We are completely turning that on its head for this new product development group, and we are putting the consumer literally at the center of this. So there isn't a move we make where we don't actually show a product, get some insight, do a provocation, or speak to the consumer about what it is we are trying to build, to really try to understand the needs and really try to build something that will be meaningful for them and that will win share of mind. So for us, it's becoming more and more critical, and I think we're starting to develop a discipline around it in our new product division.
Yeah. So we're a co-design discipline coming in.
Yeah, and really with the customer at the center of the process.
Cool. Mike?
From a marketing perspective, technology and certainly a little bit of prior planning allows us to test, copy and creative. So I'd say that while we don't have that perfectly figured out, because sometimes we're a little last minute, we're doing that pretty well. From a product perspective, I think there's a lot of truth to Steve Jobs' position on this about if you ask people what they want, they don't necessarily know what they want, and there would never be an iPad if you asked them. So from a product perspective, and again, I'm a marketing guy, I'm not a MasterCard product person, but if we constantly ask people what they wanted, they might just say they're pretty well satisfied with that little plastic card, and we might not go further beyond that anytime soon. So I think the big innovation and the big switch that's happening at MasterCard, very similar to what Denise just said, is now going forth and making what we think they want, but keeping them invested and tested along the way. So that we're not literally making some wild new payment things that no one's ever going to use. We're basically prototyping things a lot more and putting them in front of people a lot more often. And I think that's relatively new to where MasterCard has been.
Do you do a lot of A/B testing with customers at all, of campaigns?
We could always do more.
Yeah.
When you talk about the marketing end, but we are making that a regular, everyday part of what we're doing.
Okay.
And user testing labs, and then really making sure that we're not just myopically building things that we think are right from a digital experience.
Don?
I'll go farther back than Steve Jobs. I think Henry Ford said if I asked customers what they wanted, they'd say a faster horse, right? So yeah, the problem is we don't have to ask our customers; they tell us. It just, and we just every day we see it in social media, we see it on how they're on their consumption metrics, on the fact that right now our online traffic is now 65% mobile when it was about 22% at this time last year. So it's just, now we know where their habits are. So yeah, we do try to ask them questions. We want to understand what's important. But whether we ask or not, we're being told almost in real time on how they want to be treated, what kind of content they want, how they want it delivered. And frankly, they're very demanding. And that's what keeps us on our toes and keeps us, frankly, I think helps us to keep relevant in a lot of ways.
Cool. Well, we're out of time, so one last question real quick. If you had to start over in your job and do it all over again, what one thing would you do differently? Let's start with you, Don.
I'd be taller. It's tough, but I'd be taller. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Thanks, Mike.
Wow, I can't top that. MBA color, that's great.
Yeah.
I think if we're talking about my current role that I would do differently, I would plant myself, again, geographically, I said most of our technology folks aren't in the same office. I'd plant myself there for the first, at least 3 to 6 months.
Okay.
Rather than visiting, and that would, definitely is what I sincerely recommend to anyone tackling the same challenges we're talking about, is plant yourself there so that you are listening and understanding and can truly have a meeting of the minds.
Denise?
I think I'm so new in this role, so I already am doing it. So I don't. I've been in this role since April, and not to suggest that we're getting everything right. Clearly, we're not. There's always a lot of work to do, but I feel like we're on that journey right now.
Okay. Well, thank you all. Thank you very much.